On a surface that can shatter in an instant, he paints imagery that will last a lifetime. Looking deep into a world second to ours, vibrant colors radiate off each other, telling stories and inspiring others. He finds his work to be an enjoyable challenge, always looking to improve upon his last. On today's edition of Art Now, we'll look at the work of Phil Strang.
Hi, welcome to Art Now. This is a program where we talk to artists whose work is part of our community. I'm Robin Hall. I will be your host this evening. And our guest today is Phil Strang, a local artist. And Phil has many talents, and we're going to talk about some of those today. Phil, welcome.
Thank you, Robin.
Tell us, let's start just from the very beginning. How did you come to Champaign-Urbana?
In 1967, when I was 17, my parents thought I should come back to good old Illinois, where they were from, and go here to the U of I, which is the school they went to. So I came here as a freshman in 1967.
How were you immediately involved in art? Have you been involved in art your whole...
Well, when I came here, I was actually an architecture major. I had done quite a bit of art in junior high and high school. I had painted a mural across from the junior high library of Romeo and Juliet that took me 6 weeks to do. It almost killed me. And then when I was a senior in high school, I painted a jungle scene on the bedroom wall of my house. So I was always interested in art. I came here in architecture. I loved my freehand drawing class. I even kind of liked my mechanical drawing class, but the architecture program was so demanding back then, I couldn't stick with it. So after one semester, I already switched out into something else.
Well, if you were painting a mural on your bedroom wall, you obviously had a family that encouraged or at least supported your art. So you had family, and who else got you attracted to art?
I had a couple of really good teachers in junior high and high school who encouraged me. We actually had a class where we were encouraged to create anything we wanted to my senior year. And they really pushed us to be original. So I mean, it was just a neat idea that anything you do could have some value. So you know, people would come up with just random ideas, and some of it might be performance art, and some of it was just straight painting or drawing, but it was really to stretch our imaginations, not to just copy something that had already been done.
Were you also involved in performance art before you came?
I didn't do a lot of performance. I had done a little bit of theater, but I was a little bit stage shy back then. It wasn't until my late 20s I actually started performing in bands and in theater.
Tell us about the art you do now.
Okay, in 2004, when we closed Record Service, which is a business I was co-owner of for 34 years, I had all these glass dividers. We had 160 some pieces of glass dividers that were about 2-inch by 10-inch pieces of glass. And then I had about 40 pieces that were like 16 by 20 that had been part of a shelving unit. And I was cleaning the place out, and I thought, well, I don't want to throw these away. I don't, you know, it's kind of neat, but I can't really, what am I going to do with it? And somehow I thought, I'll paint on them. I went over to Art Coop and said, do you have any paint for painting on glass? And Knut said, here, well, try this stuff. And it's a paint called PBO, P-E-B-E-O. It's actually a French craft paint for painting on glass and ceramics. And once you paint on it, you have to bake it so it has permanence. So you have to be able to just put it in a regular oven, 325 degrees for 20 minutes, and then it has some permanent quality. So before that, you could maybe wipe it off, or if it got wet, it might damage it. I still wouldn't put it in the dishwasher, but at least it has, you know, permanent quality about it now. Anyway, so that was how I got started. And I didn't even know what I wanted to paint, or, you know, I mean, these little strips of glass were somewhat limiting to what you could do. And I just started playing around with different ideas.
What kind of painting had you done before you started painting on glass?
Well, all the artwork I'd done for the previous 30 years had basically been commercial art. I mean, I'd been put together, I did all the advertising for Record Service for 30 years. And so a lot of times I wasn't even using my own artwork. I had other artists I would get high school kids who drew, and they could work for me. You know, it was kind of neat because they would like get involved in the News Gazette, art, draw, you know, do advertising for local business stuff. And I got a few kids who did that. Matter of fact, Paley. Nina Paley was one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. And Morgan Usadell's son, Gabriel, was another one. And they would do drawings for me, and I would use those in our advertising. So I kind of put together the advertising, did all the copy and everything. So I wasn't really doing my own artwork for a long time.
So then you start doing your artwork. Where are you going with this? What are you sending a message? Are you?
Well, at first, it was therapy. I mean, I was, you know, upset. Our business, I mean, the business that I'd worked at and put my heart and soul into for years had basically faded. I mean, the music business just collapsed over a very short period of time. There was really no way to stop that. And so I would spend 2 or 3 hours a day tearing apart, you know, the old store and getting rid of stuff. And for like 6 months, I mean, I was tearing stuff down half the day and then painting the other half of the day. So it was just a wonderful way to balance my time and my energy. And at first, I was doing kind of fantasy and mythology and, you know, painting stuff that my kids might find appealing. I was involved with a Renaissance fair in town here for a couple of years. I painted stuff that I thought, you know, painting on glass, well, that could exist back in that time period. And so I painted dragons and unicorns and Pegasus and things like that. And had some success at that. And actually my first portrait was of the woman who played Queen Elizabeth at our fair. I was commissioned to paint her portrait. And that worked out really well. And I worked from a photo of her and using this style, you know, it came from a black and white photo, did a colorful painting of her. And I thought, I could do this. I like this. And so it went from being therapy to also something that I felt was something I could share with other people.
You're working on a very small glass canvas, for want of a better term, right?
Yes, yeah. And, I mean, these are about as big as anything I do. I went from 2-inch by 10-inch strips of glass, and I probably painted, at least 100 of them in the first year. It went from the mythology to I did a series of Western gunfights, which was a lot of fun because I would look up on the internet of recreations of gunfights and get these little pictures and then kind of draw it or put together a collage on a little piece of paper and then use that as my model to paint. And so I knew I was doing something that wasn't being, you know, it was original, it wasn't being done elsewhere. Because some of the stuff I did early, I was basically copying somebody else's work. You know, I did some Remingtons and I did a lot of Van Gogh. Van Gogh was a major influence from when I was drawing when I was 17 all the way through. He's always been an artist I've admired. And so I did, one of my paintings is of my van that I was driving at the Church of Auvers. He's got a painting called the Church at Auvers. So I painted my van in front of the church, and I call it Van at the Church at Auvers. And so it was just a really good way for me to express myself, to work out a lot of my feelings, emotions. I think I often can get my sense of humor out in my artwork, which, you know, not that I don't take it seriously, but it's not tormenting. I'm not Van Gogh in that sense. I mean, I admire his work, but I don't want to be the tormented artist.
Gotcha. Is this medium the main one you use in PBO? Are you working with others?
This is basically all I'm doing these days. I sort of feel like I've created, not that I'm doing something that nobody else has done, but I don't see very many people doing the same work.
Right.
The color quality is fascinating. The fact that when you scan it, you get depth to the painting. There's light behind it that comes through various parts. Because the actual painting is done in layers. I mean, I'll do a first layer, and then I'll do a second layer, and then I'll do a textured layer, and sometimes even a fourth layer to get the various colors. And the texturing on the skin is always the hardest part. It's somewhat tedious because I'm working with the tiniest brushes you can find. I mean, some of them are no bigger than a toothpick, and working on a very small surface. So like I said, these are some of the bigger paintings I've done. I went from the 2x10s to doing some 4x6 or 5x7s, and I did a couple that were bigger. When I did a 12x16, it took me almost 100 hours to paint.
Wow.
So an average painting like this I can do now in about 10 hours. And I still feel like I'm developing my technique, my style. I'm learning various tricks and skills along the way. Just different things with shading and texturing. I still find noses, lips, and eyes as hard things to draw. They're always the last things I put in. And you'll notice not too many hands. Somebody was talking the other day about how hands are really hard to paint, and I'm looking, yeah, maybe 2 of 20 paintings of mine have hands in them. But I do love faces and expressions, and
It's obvious.
yeah, it's very satisfying to me.
Have you, when you're thinking, are you thinking about an audience when you're doing this work, or is this really just coming from within and you're not too worried about it?
I'm not really geared towards an audience, though almost everything I've done in the last 2 years, including these 3 paintings here, are commissioned pieces for people in the world of Second Life. And so that's a portrait of a character in Second Life that I did a photo shoot and selected which picture I wanted to use as my model. And this one's actually a self-portrait. And so I have an audience built in on that level, but in real life, I think the audience is anybody who enjoys art. And a lot of these, what I do is I have them scanned and printed at 2 to 3 times this size, so that it's a bigger piece of artwork that you can put on the wall. Mm-hmm. And you know, this is somewhat fragile. I mean, if this breaks, you've broken the painting itself. It's not just a glass cover for the painting.
What's the most frustrating part about your artwork?
That my eyes are going bad. It's, you know, a lot of times I'm sitting like this, and I'm dot, 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 and I'm squinting, and I'm wearing reading glasses so I can see better, and it's hard to get enough light, and I don't have enough time. I mean, let's say if it takes me 10 hours to do that painting, that might be 20 half-hour sessions, which I try to squeeze in over a 2-week period, and I would love to have 3 to 5 hours a day where I could paint.
Let's lead into the next one then. So if you had unlimited time and funding, what would you like to attempt? What would you like to do?
Well, one of the things that I would really like to do is to take some of the paintings I've already done and have them printed out on canvas. And I've experimented a little, so I know I can do it and it will work, and make them 10 times or greater the size they actually are. So taking a 2-inch by 10-inch painting and making it 2 feet by 10 feet. So basically it could cover that whole wall. I think
wild.
It would. It would just knock me out. And part of that idea I got from, once again, in the world of Second Life, I can blow things up and make them as big as I want. So I can have a painting that's bigger than me. And I thought, I like that idea. It just, in real life, it costs a lot of money to do that.
It sounds fascinating. Is any of your work a collaboration? I mean, you take a commission, but or is this?
You know, there's only a couple things I would say that could be called collaborations. One of them is a couple times I have done pieces that are logos for various places. Like this is actually designed to be a logo for a place called the White Wolf Village and Mall. And what I've done is I've sent this to a friend of mine who has actually framed it and put the lettering White Wolf around it, because she has some skills in Photoshop that I don't. So that's about as far as collaboration. Though there are certain ways I could do collaborations, because I know people who could take these and print them out on material, do quilts, make them into other forms of artwork as well. But so far, for the most part, everything I'm doing is on my own.
That's been rewarding?
Oh, incredibly. I mean, not financially rewarding, but yes. Yeah, oh yeah. It's, you know, I've spent years, I played in bands, I did music, which I loved. There's a frustration level.
Played sports?
Yes, I did sports until I was 47, played, full-time competitive softball. Coached my kids through all their sports, everything but hockey. wrote for years for various magazines and newspapers in town, and that was all great experience. And did theater. I mean, I did theater for 20 years.
Yes, you did.
At the station and at Summit, Virginia, and I loved all that. But this is something I can do on my own, in my own time, in my own space, and the reward is it's a growth, and I can come up with things that are beyond my concept even. You know, I can impress myself, which I guess doesn't sound that great, but it's still a really good feeling that you can reach beyond yourself.
Since you put paint on that first piece of glass,
Uh-huh.
and up to right now, so how has that changed you? What's that done for you?
The growth as a person, I think, is a lot. To be able to conceive of something from beginning to end is always a good feeling. To be able to create, to communicate through art. I mean, I've gotten lots of great responses, a lot of good feelings from people. I'm creating something that I think my kids can use as something that's worthwhile for their future. You know, I see a lot of positive results of it.
Are you communicating when you're doing it?
Oh, I think definitely. I mean, I feel like that I'm definitely reaching out to people, communicating to people. I think I express a lot of joy, my sense of humor, which I think is really important. Just a positive outlook on life. And even when I'm doing a gunfight, I don't see that as a negative. You know, I've got one painting that's called Bloody Pasta, and it's a gangster who's dead in his spaghetti plate. To me, that's really funny in a black humor sort of way. So yeah, I don't feel like I have a dark side. You know, it's.
How would you describe yourself as an artist?
Well, like I said, I'm influenced by Van Gogh, but really it's fun. That's not a big enough word, but I mean, just creating something out of nothing is a lot of it. Using it as a form to communicate, just a positive expression. Yeah. You know, it's a way to positively express myself and communicate with other people.
You love what you're doing.
I do. I love it very much. I mean, I also love my real life work, but this is, in some ways, a lot more fulfilling. Mm-hmm. I'm never tired after painting. I'm never worn out after painting. I just have to make myself go to bed sometimes.
What are you currently working on?
Okay, I have a big show coming up in November at Indigo. I think I'm just going to call it Body of Work, of which it'll include some of my earliest pieces, but be more heavily towards whatever I painted in the past year. I try to get done a new piece every 2 weeks. Last year I got 25 pieces done. I think I'll have at least 25 new pieces done this year.
Sweet.
And then at least one of them I'm going to do a blow-up version of.
You're going to do that big wall thing?
I'm going to do at least one for a big wall thing. So when you walk in Indigo and that big wall space that's over the downstairs, I want to have something there that just is going to knock people out.
Is it going to be a new one, or are you going to take one that you've got?
I think I'm going to work with something I already have, because the newer ones, I don't know if they loan themselves quite as well to big blow-ups. I mean, they might still look kind of cool, but I think I've got 4 of my Westerns that I really want to blow up, that I think, because they're sort of panoramas anyway, that I think they'll work well. And that's, yeah, and the idea is to actually print them on canvas. You know, what artist paints on glass and then ends up printing out a version of it on canvas? I figured that's probably not been done too often.
Oh, that's wild. That's marvelous. That's marvelous. Do you have a favorite work, or do you have? I like a lot of the stuff I've done. The things I like are often because they've gone beyond what I conceived, or just because they were an incredible amount of work and I felt very satisfied when they were finished. There's one of my Westerns called Boomtown 1888, which I found out afterwards is really a shot of Deadwood, which I didn't really know until I found a virtual version of Deadwood, and I go, that looks really familiar. And then as I was watching the TV series Deadwood, one of the shows opened up as they're going into town, and it looked just like the same town that I'd painted. I thought, that's kind of neat. And that was, a piece that's got 50, 75 people really
standing up, and And I'm drawing people. They're actually just tiny little circles, and they've got a little flash of color, but they represent people. And it's just the depth, the color. I felt very good about that. And there's also one I did of a tapestry called The Unicorn and the Lady, that's based on a fairly well-known tapestry piece from like the 1400s that I thought came out really well. But usually I like whatever I've just finished. I mean, I've only done one more painting since this one, but I've felt really happy with that. There's some things I've done in this that I've never tried before. And that's one of the things when I do a portrait of someone, I tell them there's three things basically I'm looking for. One is I want to make them look good. I want to do a painting I've never done before, and I want to challenge myself. So with each piece, I'm trying something new and different. So, you know, like in this one, I did a couple things with the flowers and where it overlaps her, and just to make some different dimensions, and just played around. And then here's, you know, an unusual piece because I did it all in black and white and gray. And then did a spring version of this where it's basically the same wolf without the cubs and with a totally different background. It's called White Wolf in Spring, because when I did this one as the logo for this village, she said, "God, we're so tired of winter. Can we have something that's not winter?" And I said, "Well, a white wolf normally lives in a polar region." But I said, "Sure, I'll put him on a beach if you want, you know." But so it's just in a spring forest scene, and it came out really good too. That's the one I just finished last week. But I think as long as I'm excited about it and everything is new and exciting, and I feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. You know, if it got to be, I'm another one of these, you know, then I...
Well, it's not a drag yet.
No, never, never. I won't let it be.
That's good, that's good.
Because I'm not doing it for a living.
Here's something I know nothing about. Of course, that doesn't keep me from talking about it, as you know. I'm very good at that. But we started talking about Second Life, and I'm going, whoa, wow. Tell us about that.
Second Life is a virtual reality world. I got introduced to it by a friend who said her son had found this place that might be a good way for me to introduce my artwork and get more exposure. So I've looked at it for a while. It took me several months to even figure out how to do it. It's a virtual reality world. You have to download it to your computer. It's not a game. I mean, that's the important thing. It's not a game. It's a world where you're interacting with 60,000 people from all over the world. When I first got in, there were a few galleries, but maybe only about 100 out of 100,000 lands. And I learned how to take my artwork, scan it, upload it into this world, and put it in a frame and show it to people, which was like a major, you know, goal. And it's helped me so much in learning how to exhibit my work in real life. The interaction of art and music is one thing, and just being able to figure out how to lay out a display on the walls. And it also gave me the ability to blow these up. So this painting that's 8 by 10, I could make it, you know, 20 feet by 30 feet and have it on a wall, which is very impressive. And the colors come out so great when they're scanned. So basically in 2.5 years, I've learned enough how to display my artwork that I have my own gallery. I've been exhibited in probably 50 or 60 other galleries. I've sold, and I'm selling basically pixelated versions of my artwork from anywhere from the equivalent of $1 to $5. It's like somebody's buying a poster, except it's just to display in that world.
Right.
And basically, when I buy artwork, I'm buying it to say, I like your artwork, here's a couple bucks.
Yeah.
You know, whether I even do anything but keep it in my inventory in the world, it's a way to encourage other artists. And then the fact that mostly what I'm painting is portraits on commission of people who live in Second Life. So in this example, this is Julie Landar, who runs a place called the Bourne Museum in Second Life. In real life, I don't even know her real name. I know she lives in Ohio. She's a 38-year-old mother of 2, very nice person. And she hired me for the equivalent of $18 to paint her portrait, of which what she gets is a pixelated version of this. If she wanted to buy the real one, this would cost her $395. If she wanted to buy a giclée print, which is a lot of what I do, it would cost her $195. So I've sold a few pieces, a few real life pieces to people that I've met in Second Life. which is really nice. But a lot of what I'm selling is just the pixelated versions of these paintings. So I've developed a pretty good following and a reputation within the world of Second Life, because there's only about 2 or 3 other people who are doing portraits of other avatars in that world.
So you're going to do a portrait of someone in Second Life. How are you shown them? How do you meet them? How do you?
Okay, well, it's until you've actually learned how to travel around in it. But basically, you can teleport to anywhere. Your character can move through all these lands and sims. What I do is I would meet them, in this case, at a place called Arliss, which is designed to look like 50 different Van Gogh paintings. So all the settings are Van Gogh's house, Van Gogh's sanitarium, Van Gogh's mill, Van Gogh's farm. It's all his. I mean, a guy came up and did this wonderful build, and I can take pictures in Van Gogh's paintings of people that I want to shoot. So I might take 100 different photos in world of somebody, and the neat thing is in Second Life you have a camera built in the world. You take photos, you can crop them, make them zoom in, zoom out. I can print them out, make a decision of what I want to paint, and then use that as my model. Gotcha. And then paint from there.
Any final words of advice to an artist or anyone who might be interested in exploring Second Life?
Oh yeah, just do it. I mean, well, there's two. One is you have to have some time. It doesn't have to cost much money because you don't have to buy anything. I mean, I did it for 3 months and never spent a penny until I learned what I was doing. And then I learned, oh, I could make some lindens, which is their form of currency, and then I would just spend what I made. So if I sell this painting, or if I get paid $5,000 in commission, 5,000 lindens in commission, which is, I said, about $18, I can use that money to buy a rocking chair for my character. Or a lot of what I do is I go hear musicians who are playing live, streaming live from their house. They could be sitting in their underwear in their kitchen table, but they look like they're up on stage in front of 50 people, and we tip the musicians. So musicians can make a pretty good living. They can make 20, 30 bucks an hour.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So here's a new world. Okay, you and I have been around here in Champaign-Urbana for quite a while. But tell me your opinion of how is art, performing arts, visual arts, how has it changed in Champaign-Urbana in the last several years?
Well, I think there's always been encouragement. I think there's now more places for people to show original artwork. Performance, I think, there's always been a lot of venues. Like earlier you'd mentioned IMC, and that's certainly one of them. There's always been several bars or clubs in town that cater exclusively to live music. I think the arts, though, seem to have opened up more. The cities of Champaign and Urbana both seem to have developed some kind of a plan that we need to have more art, visual art for people to see, to interact with, which I think is wonderful. I mean, 40 North, 88 West is a tremendous organization. They've done as much as they can to help encourage and expand the interest in the arts. So I mean, you know, I think Urbana has always been, you know, pretty much a leader in the world of arts, and I think what they've done the last couple of years has been wonderful, really wonderful to encourage it and do grants and everything.
Great, great. We thank you for watching Art Now. Our guest has been Phil Strang, and you'll be able to see his work this fall at the Indigo Center. Watch for that announcement. Thank you for joining us.